Thing about any presentation I've ever given in the past, it was based on research, okay? I've never seen a UFO. But this presentation is based on experience, and for me, it's totally different because this is firsthand, this presentation. All other presentations I've done have been researched. And I think one of the truest statements I came across, actually it was Nietzsche who said this, was when you look into the dark side looks into you. Okay, so this is my presentation, which I've never talked about previously. I do want to say also, I will be on Coast to Coast AM tomorrow night with George Knapp at 1 a.m. So if you don't have to work on Monday, I'll be on Halloween morning, Sunday night. Okay, I think when you look at some of the stuff that's out there, you really have to start with credibility. You know, I thought Ancient Aliens was great the first couple of years, but to me now it's just UFO entertainment. I'm serious about that. I put it into the same category as messing with Sasquatch, because it's UFO entertainment. You can't really prove a lot of what they say on the Ancient Alien show. But, you know, when I have a radio show too, the people that are on there, the people we bring to these conferences are credible people. We don't mess around with people that make things up. 30% of people have had a paranormal experience. Raise your hand if something paranormal has happened to you. Okay, well, here it's probably 50%. 14% of people have seen a UFO. Raise your hand if you've seen a UFO. There's a lot of people. Okay. It's actually 2.7% believe they've been abducted. And as I go through this, I think there's a huge relationship there, and I'll talk about later, between the modern day alien abduction and the demonic possession. Because it changed on the alien abduction, and we'll get to that. It's completely changed on how it occurs for some people. I've read, probably the last 2 years, 60 books. I'm reading close to a book a week every 10 days. This past month, I probably read 30 books. And I'm trying to gather as much information as I can on this field. And the one thing is, you can't explain this field. I've been doing this 18 years. I think I know as much about UFOs as Stanton Friedman or Richard Dolan. I can answer any of your questions, and I'm completely confused as to what the answer is. I don't know. Because every time I think I have this figured out, something else happens, like I'm going to talk about here. But in my research, if you look at what's positive and what's negative, and this is important, near-death experiences are 99% of the time positive, and I have a slide on that we'll get to. Encounters with Nordics and angels, obviously, are positive experiences. On the negative side, and it's most of the time, the Greys, Bigfoot, shadow people, Slender Man, reptilians, insectoids are negative encounters, forced abductions, okay? There's a reason we're all drawn to this, and it makes no sense that I'm doing this. I had no interest in UFOs, never have. I wanted to write a sci-fi book, which I did 10 years ago. But all the people I talk to, you know, they'll say something brought them in. For me, it's been a lifetime of paranormal experiences that I never spoke about before. I mean, I was an executive at UPS, head of security for 3 states, public affairs. We met with 22 congressmen and senators quarterly. I mean, I had an executive job. This is not what I should be doing. But I was pulled into it. And it's funny, it's almost like Godfather 3. Every time I pull out of this, I can't get away. It pulls me back in. I'm serious. It does. I wanted to be done with this. You know, I wrote my last book last year, and I wrote another one that I didn't intend to write. Okay, one of the best books you can read is Deliver Us from Evil by Ralph Sarchie. It was a movie on a couple of years ago. He's the cop out of the Bronx with the paranormal investigations. I want to tell you some things that I never knew about. I was a Famous Monsters of Filmland, HorrorCon, Comic-Con kid growing up. Made my own Super 8 movies. The movie Super 8, that was me. I wasn't the fat kid. I was the athletic kid, though. But I learned a lot in this field that I didn't know. And I would ask these questions, like, over the years. What's an archangel? Like, how's that different than an angel? But ghosts. Ghosts are human spirits. they're us when we die. You didn't go to the light, you're here for some reason, say goodbye to relatives, or you just decided not to go. You have free will. Ghosts have free will. You can bring the Pope to your house and try to exorcise a ghost out. It doesn't have to leave. It's a human spirit with free will. I never knew that. Elementals are spirits that are called up from nature or animals. They were not human spirits. Inhuman spirits are basically your angels and demons. This is what black witches call upon. They're demonic spirits. They can materialize. And I got it, the coming up slides explain the different levels of demons and devils and stuff. Most of the time, and you see this in movies, they materialize, but they're missing some body parts. When you get to that higher level of fallen angel, let's say, they're able to materialize fully. And I still got a question as to how powerful are these things? And it's a question that you can't really get an answer to. And there's very few books out there on this. So what I did, and no one's ever done this before, is I compared the signs of a demonic possession, the infestation, oppression, and possession, to the alien abduction that you've heard so many times on so many shows and so many books. Nobody's ever done that comparison. Kenneth Ring did a comparison of near-death experience to alien abduction, and we'll talk about that coming up. So I put this together, and I actually gave this slide to Kathy Martin of MUFON. She had never seen this before. What you're looking at up there is the ones with the red dots are things that have happened to me or my kids, and it's about half of these things. The ones with the U means it's a UFO or demonic, happens at both. And when you look at it, there's about a 50% overlap on things that happened during an alien abduction or a demonic possession. And when you look at it, about half of all those things have either happened to me or my kids. And this started at 4 years old. And I've never talked about it before. My first talk on this was at the Erie MUFON conference. But I could run through these. They're in my book. I really got a lot to talk about. But that's the list if you want to see it. It's in the book, and it's frightening, actually. Something I never knew, and this was that question I said, you know, what's an archangel? Like, you know, what's a throne? You know, Game of Thrones? Like, what are we talking about here? What you have is a hierarchy, and there's 9 levels of angels, okay? The top 3 are the most powerful, and then it works its way down. So humans are level 10. Animals, plants, etc., level 11. There's a hierarchy, okay? So when you look at the top, you have God, you have, you know, that's Captain Kirk. You have second in command is Spock, the seraphim, right? That was Lucifer, all right? He was the angel of light. He was second in command. Extremely powerful. But I've asked, and if anybody's here that knows from, you know, I was really not into religion. You know, so I didn't know a lot about this stuff. I said I was a Catholic. I was a lapsed Catholic and never stepped into a church from 1992, from the day my wife filed for a separation, which was totally uncalled for. So I didn't, that's my opinion, not hers. But I got angry at God, and I never went to church from 1992 until 2014. But, so what you got is the top level, pure light, cherubim, guards the gates of heaven, thrones carry out God's orders. The next level, dominions, they regulate the angels, virtues perform miracles, powers combat the fallen angels, principalities guard against evil, archangels command God's army. And think about this, Michael was a level 8 angel. He had 7 levels above him. He was able to defeat or suppress Lucifer, who was the number 1 below God. But he was only able to do it because God, in the story, I don't know if it's true, I believe it is now. 2 years ago, I would have laughed at most of this. Now I believe it 1,000%, okay? And I'll tell you why when I get to it. But he was given that sword from God, and he was able to suppress and stop the evil. Now, you can call these, and I even put in my book, I want to call them malevolent interdimensional entities and benevolent interdimensional entities. Heaven's a dimension, hell is a dimension. You want to make it religious, and I certainly do, but it turns people off. And it's the biggest disappointment I think I've had in this past year is when I talk about this and I mention any form of religion, angels, demons, Jesus, people get turned off. And it's a huge, huge disappointment because that was predicted. It's the great apostasy when people turn away from religion, and it's wrong. And I'll stand here and I don't care what you think. Don't buy my books. Don't listen to me walk out. I'm telling you, it's real. And you'll realize that when I get to it. The problem is, fallen angels have the exact same hierarchy. Okay? Here's their hierarchy. I guess through exorcism, they've come up with names of who fits into what level, and you could see their names. Basically, that top three, the most powerful, are devils. Something else I never knew. I thought there was one devil. He was Lucifer, who became Satan. Nope. The whole top three levels are devils. Numerous devils. And you recognize some of those names from movies or books. The bottom six then are workers. Of course, there are different strengths. If you go to the bottom, what you get when you deal with a malevolent entity that was a fallen angel, okay, that's the infestation. Now, there are ghosts, and they can make noises, small noises. They can move little things, maybe. When you get these in your house, it's totally different. This showed up in June of 14 and came back with a vengeance at Thanksgiving of 15, okay? Now, that's called infestation. They make all kinds of noises in your house. They're bugging you, trying to keep you from sleeping. Then they move up a level, and in Islam, this was called the jinn, okay? But they move up to what we call fallen archangels. That's oppression. They start with attacks on you, physical attacks on you. And then when they warn you out, the next level comes, and it's actually principalities and powers. That's the possession. That's the Exorcist movie. That's when it goes in you and suppresses your soul and takes over your body and your mind. And it's almost a split personality to have you in there and this other thing controlling you at different times. So that's the hierarchy. I knew none of this. I knew nothing about this growing up. There are different events. My personal opinion, I'm dealing with a generational sin here. And in my book, you know, maybe I shouldn't have trashed my father and grandfather, but there's things they did. My father was in prison. He killed a guy. He knifed a guy. My grandfather, there's some stuff there. This started at 4 years old. It couldn't be me. I'm not a sinner at 4 years old. So that's my opinion. I don't know. And it's like all of this. I don't know. You don't really know. And you're probably not meant to know until you're on the other side. That's when you'll know the truth, when you die. But what I've read, and this is disturbing, is that when they pick out a family line, if they can possess that family line for 3 or 4 generations, they claim that family line. It's almost like rules between the angels and fallen angels. And they're after my kids too. It's very disturbing to find out after I moved out with the divorce, the things that happened to them in my house in New Jersey. They never told me until I decided I was writing this, and we're going to get to that. Now, when you talk about science, and look, MUFON's a scientific organization. I got very little use for scientists. They're good, they prove certain things, but the things science can't prove, they say don't exist. I'm not talking about MUFON, I'm talking about science in general. But when you put all your eggs in the scientific, atheistic basket, you cannot understand the things that science can't explain. And when they can't explain it, they say it doesn't exist or it's in your mind. And they want to give you prescriptions. And I think we all know about that. And if prescriptions don't work, you need an exorcism is what you need, because it's not in your mind. The other thing they don't seem to realize is your mind. I've read so many books written by psychiatrists, psychologists. They want to find in your brain the sections that control things. Everything comes from your brain according to them. And I told my son, the brain is this laptop. It's not the software. The software is what controls everything. And for us, it's your soul. That's the higher thinking. That's why people have out-of-body experiences, altered states. You can leave it's your soul, your mind, the higher thinking. It's a difference between us and apes. We have the soul that they don't have. And that's why the psychiatric departments can't figure this out. They're dealing with hardware as a mind, and that's not where this comes from. So science deals with the laws of nature, what's explainable, what's repeatable. I learned a new word, preternatural, preternatural. Those are all the negative things, okay? Supernatural are miracles performed by God or angels, the positive things. And on TV, you'll see everything is called supernatural, right? That was supernatural. Look what happened, supernatural. No, it's not. If it's negative, it's preternatural. And I've only come across that in maybe 3 or 4 books. I even come across one that says this is the correct word, but nobody wants to use it, so we'll call it supernatural. Use the right terminology. Stuff from the dark side is preternatural. Stuff from the light side, the good side, is supernatural. And then paranormal is everything that cannot be explained, which is everything that science can't or won't explain. Okay, exorcism. I read Malachi Martin's book, Hostage to the Devil. 5 80-page case histories. I had to keep putting it down because it plays with your mind. It really, he gets so deep into their personalities, why it happened, what they did, how it takes you over. You know, it's like, all my life, I had one movie that ever scared me. 1973, at 16 years old, The Exorcist. That is the only, because I knew it was real. I knew that could happen. And you know when you watch Frankenstein, Dracula, that's not real. The exorcism, I always felt was real. So exorcism was authorized by the Catholic Church in 1614. Technically, Jesus performed exorcism. He raised people from the dead. He got rid of spirits. And the baptism is the first exorcism. Never realized that. That's the original sin. That's the first exorcism that most of us have attended on ourselves. Very, very interesting. And I'm going to tell you things here that you don't know that builds a case, right? Prior to 1990, there were 6 exorcisms a year. After 1990, there are 1,300 exorcisms a year around the world. Something changed somewhere. And, you know, I gave this talk to Rotary. I'm a Rotary Club president. The kid says, well, I was born, you know, not the internet. It's the internet. Was that what it is? The Vatican gets 2 copies of every exorcism that a Catholic Church performs. Well, they get 1 copy, and I think the priest keeps a copy. They're documented. Any exorcism performed by the Catholic Church is documented. So I don't think the internet was the reason that there was an increase in exorcism, because the increase should have come in 1973 from Linda Blair. That's where it should have come from, but it happened in 1990. I met her. She's nice looking. St. Michael prayer was eliminated in 1968. That's the one that wards off the evil spirits. That's a mistake. There are things that we've done to be politically correct with the church that I think is a mistake. One of them is to go from Latin to English, to eliminate certain prayers, because they don't want you to be afraid, because they're losing membership. That's part of the problem. In almost every case, there's an invitation. Playing with tarot cards, Ouija boards, something occult. If it wasn't my family line, it was my interest in horror movies. You know, I used to make my own Super 8 movies. I love that stuff. But, you know, it was black and white movies and stuff. That was my interest. I don't know. What I can tell you is you never provoke these things. We're level 10. They are much, much more powerful than we are. And you don't communicate with them. I will not communicate. Provoke, that's a different thing, because my personality is different. You draw first blood, then it's a free-for-all, okay? I want them to show themselves, and it's a huge mistake, because I do kickboxing. I am going to hit this thing so hard, it's going back to hell, all right? And we're going to get into this. But that's my personality, and that's a mistake, because it's like fighting a bear. You're going to lose. Humans have no chance physically themselves, because we think we're something, you know? We're not compared to them. They're much more powerful than we are. But that's my personality, and I got to make sure I don't do that. But I will not communicate with it. From everything I've read, this is the great mistake. People start to communicate, right? What you ask the thing is, do you love God? Do you love Jesus? That is the only thing, if I ever heard it communicate, which I haven't, that's the question. It cannot say that. So that's the only question you want to ask. And I just give you 2 quick examples. I'm a Rotary Club president. I'm at the Rotary Foundation dinner. This girl comes up to me and says, John, you want to speak at our Rotary again? I always speak on UFOs, to all of them in Western PA. I said, I got a new talk on demonology. She says, sit down, her and her boyfriend. I got a story to tell you. Bottom line is, they're tricksters. She said, I saw my mother. She's standing there covered in blood. I don't remember the girl's name. Ann, help me. Mom, come in. She invited it in. Now, she says, John, I go to bed at night, I see these fingers come over the top of the door with nails, right? And I see my mother covered in blood. She won't leave. It's changed. And she says, the boyfriend says, John, I lay down. There's shadow people. They get on top trying to get in me. They got a serious problem. They invited it in. I go to every UFC fight. I used to do pay-per-view, but it's gotten too expensive. I go to Buffalo Wild Wings, right? I watch a fight. I get there at 8:30 for a 10 o'clock fight so you can get a table. A couple of months ago, I'm sitting there, it's crowded. You know, I'm sitting there with a table for 4 and it's just me. This 30-year-old kid comes over and says, can I sit down? I said, yeah, go ahead, sit down. He says, I know you. I said, well, I was on television, Hangar One, I do the UFO conference in town. He goes, yeah, that's where I saw you. He goes, let me tell you about something. I think it's an ET. He starts talking to me. I said to him, you're not dealing with an alien. You're dealing with a demonic spirit. He would see these 2 shadow people in his room, one smaller, one big, about 7 feet. He says the smaller one would push the bigger one out and it would protect me. I said, you idiot. He's not protecting you. He's claiming you. I said, you didn't speak to this thing, did you? He goes, yeah, in my head, I can communicate with it. And I said, you're dealing with a demonic entity. This thing is attached to you now. I'm telling you, the kid's face dropped, turned whiter than the white he was. His jaw opened, and you could see the shock on his face. He thought this thing was there to help him, like some ghost of a relative. Now he's got this attached to him. So I'm telling him what he can do. He don't want to listen. He looks up at the bar. Oh, my friends are here. He got up and he walked away from me. And I sat there and said, I lost one. I just lost somebody. You know, I'm not a demonologist, but I know enough about this, what to do, what not to do. Those are some examples. They pretend to be a ghost of a relative. For some reason, like if you read any exorcism, they can see your unconfessed sins. But yet, everything I've read says they can't read your mind. I don't know what parts are true, but they seem to know the things you've done, like during an exorcism. I already said, commanded to leave in the name of Jesus. I'm going to get to this woman I met who helped me out of the blue because we have guardian angels. One of the things she said to me is, remember, John, he that is within you is more powerful than he that is without. And you've got to believe that. And you know, whether you believe in Jesus, Buddha, whoever your person is from your faith, whoever the good guy is, that's the one you have to believe in 100%. And it's hugely important, and I'm going to get that. I also read that they can take over your body, right, the hardware, but not your soul. Your soul belongs to God. I don't know if that's true. I've read other books that says they can take your soul too. And that obviously is the scary part because that's forever, all right? I mentioned the medical community. They think it's all in your mind, and they think you're ill, and they want to give you drugs. But even in these books you read, the Catholic Church will tell you you have to get a medical evaluation before an exorcism to cover themselves because people have died during bad exorcisms. But, and Malachi Martin said, there's a percentage of people, when the medication doesn't work, they need an exorcism. And maybe 5% will be cured after an exorcism, all right? Personally, I think both our political candidates right now need an exorcism. This is the worst election I've ever seen in my life, but that's politics, you know. That might be the last thing on my bucket, you know, because I am incorruptible right now, I can tell you that much. I'll be the good politician. The other thing is they never forget, and they always return. And I can tell you the things I've dealt with, and what showed up in June of 14 and what showed up in November of 15 was a different level, total different level. It moved up. Okay, this was hugely important, and it's a comparison by Kenneth Ring of near-death experience and CE4, alien abduction. What I've done on this slide is add my knowledge of demonic. I put the near-death experience here and the alien abduction demonic here, right? The interesting thing on all of these, no matter what it is you deal with, even an out-of-body experience, it changes you. And it changes you for the better. You become a lot more self-aware, a lot more aware of other people. It's almost like an evolution that takes place in your mind. And maybe Rebecca's going to talk about consciousness, the metaphysics. I don't know. That's not my area. All I can tell you is today I'm a different person than I was a year ago and 2 years ago. It really changes your viewpoint. It's not a world viewpoint. It's a universal viewpoint that you start thinking about. And it's different than, you know, I grew up in Queens in a tough neighborhood, and I had no money. I worked my way up. I'm a millionaire now. I don't have to do any of this stuff, okay? But it changes. I could care less right now about investing in the stock market. I don't care about money right now. I got different priorities. So Kenneth Ring, what he had said was, when you have a near-death experience, it's life-threatening, but then it turns peaceful. Opposite-wise, the demonic or the abduction is sudden and it's very frightful. So you see peaceful, frightful. Then near death, you're swept up into the light, you see relatives, a light person. The other two, you're taken by some sort of a creature. There's a self-examination of your deeds during the near-death experience. In the other two, it's a physical examination. Near death gives you a choice to return. The other one, you are now controlled by them, and they keep coming back. Near death, most of the time, you have your full memory. The other two, memory's impaired, you need to go to hypnotic regression, etc. You don't remember all the details. Near death is emotional. The other two, very stressful. Near death usually occurs once. You don't want to be in too many car accidents or fall out 6th-floor windows. You know, it occurs one time. The other two recurs. Near death is usually an adult, but again, it's a one-time deal. The other two usually starts as a child. And I think I read 70% of abductions are females at 12, around puberty, and again in their 20s, okay? And it keeps coming back. And I think when you look at it, what's a near-death experience? You're at the gates of heaven, basically. That's what's been described. When you look at alien abduction and a demonic possession, you're in a different one of those 11 dimensions. And my guess is you're on that bottom, you're number 11. You know, the other one's at number 1. That's my personal belief. I got some issues with this whole hybrid thing. And Fred Saluga started the trouble with me. We do that TV show that you saw Friday night, UFOs over Pittsburgh. First episode with Doc Medich, who's the pitcher for the Yankees and Pirates. He's one of my investigators out there with the abductions. But Fred keeps asking me, first episode, and even before that, John, why do abductions go on for hundreds of years? You know, why can't they just get enough DNA from this front row and clone it? Why does it keep going on? And I never thought about it because I knew nothing about UFOs. I got into MUFON with this nuts and bolts, they're here from space, and I can prove it. I got a lot of evidence in my book, Case for UFOs, right? And the other book that talks about the whole ancient alien stuff, alternative history. But he got me thinking, and I started looking at this. And, you know, in my mind right now, we say they're from space, right? But I cannot reproduce with a chimp. We're 96% similar, right? The chances of an ET having DNA that's compatible and 36 chromosomes is 0, unless we had the same progenitor or creator, all right? It makes you think that the abduction thing has to come from this planet, either us returning from the future, a different species that's on this planet, hollow earth, etc., or the Nephilim that has been discussed, you know, in the Bible, in a number of books, that was able to become human and mate with females, basically, is what the story is. That makes the perfect sense to me on the abduction program. Or we were all created either by a god, and we're the same on every planet, or some species that comes around and genetically engineers us and populates, seeds the planet. I don't know. I can't give you the answer. There's huge questions to me on this whole hybrid thing when you tell me that they're aliens from another planet. I doubt they would even look like us. And I've read a number of people who said if we got wiped out and you mixed it all up again and started, we would not come out human. Okay, now I get into my story. That's the background information that I think you need to know. And all the stuff I never knew. This was kind of cool. I actually looked up the houses I lived in as a kid and put them here, all right? My house is the one there with the brown and the little flower pot thing there in the front. This is that's 1969. 1961, I'm living in, I was born in the Bronx, I'm living in Brooklyn. I'm in bed, 4 years old. Something grabs my feet. Two hands grab both my ankles. I screamed. The door opens, and there stands my father, my mother, and my brother. I can see that as clearly as I can see you. That happened. That always stuck with me. I will not sleep with an arm or a leg sticking over the side of a bed. That was my earliest experience. 1969, living in Richmond Hill, Queens. I have 4 nights in a row of out-of-body experiences. I thought it was cool. I was like the only 12-year-old who couldn't wait to go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, because every night I went outside and I was flying like Superman. I could see my entire neighborhood, the Whitleys, the Minettis, all my friends' houses, clear as a bell. And I went further each night. I had no idea what this stuff is. In my case, these things happen every few years. So they're like one-offs, don't happen again. So, you know, you're busy working, et cetera, later. You don't think about it. It's like, okay, it happened. I had a paranormal experience. One of the things that happened when I was young, and I probably should have reversed those 2 slides, but I remember being in like maybe 1st or 2nd grade. I would have a recurring dream of standing in a doorway, leaning against the door frame, looking at a beige brick house and a cemetery, right? When I moved to Pittsburgh in 1997, and this house was really an expensive house. I couldn't afford it. I could, but I didn't want to. But I got to the back door. I opened and looked. There's the beige brick wall. There's the cemetery in the background. The thing I saw 30 years earlier, I bought that house. And the strange thing is, I told my kids and other people, I'm never leaving this house. I worked for UPS. Every 3 to 5 years, you got transferred. I stayed 15 years in Pittsburgh. That never happens. Didn't happen to any other executive because I had really good results. 2 transfers came up to San Francisco and Secaucus, New Jersey. I got my plane tickets and was told, don't go. We made a change of who we're going to send there. That never happens. It's almost like I got a vision of the future. I bought that house. That's the house I live in right now. 1971, I'm 14. My parents, my brother, sister go to the hospital. My grandmother's dying. I didn't go that night. It was in Jamaica, Queens. Outside my door, I'm reading a book. I hear the loudest female moan in agony. Oh! It was painful, right? My parents come home. We go to bed. A couple hours later, phone call from the hospital. She passed away. I'm convinced the connection, her soul leaving the body before the body died. 1973, there's your exorcist, scariest thing. I can't even look at that. I mean, that picture used to stay in my mind every time I closed my eyes. And there was also, and I want to talk about this UFO wave that took place in 73. But what happened in 73 is I played a doubleheader of softball. I laid down in my room. I fell asleep. I always called it a lucid dream. Now I think I understand it was an altered state. I'm in the backyard. I open the basement door. Instead of the other door being there, it's a cave. I go down a couple of levels, winding. Something is coming up. I turn around. I can see the light of the doorway. Of course, I'm running in slow motion. This is the most malevolent feeling you ever want. It's behind you. I can sense it. The hair's up. I can feel it breathing on me. And I said to myself in my mind, do not turn around. If you look at this, you ain't waking up from this dream. Don't look. Move a finger. I was able to move a pinky. I wake up. I sit up in bed. I am drenched in sweat. My heart, I used to run track. My heart was beating like I just ran the 660. I don't know what that was. I always called it a lucid dream. I think it was more than that now. But here's the thing with these abductions that I talk about too. 1973, huge abductions, started in Pascagoula, you're familiar with that case, came up the Mississippi. That's a picture of, in Alabama, the police chief took that picture of whatever he saw, and when he told the people, they burnt his house down and ran him out of town. It's a true story. That was in Alabama. But, so you got this UFO wave up the Mississippi, branched out to Indiana, across Pennsylvania, huge stuff in Pennsylvania. It's in my Pennsylvania UFO book. Went up to New Hampshire and ended. It was 6 weeks. No, October 17th, more than any other day in our history, had the most alien abductions attempted ever. And you should look it up. I have the information in my books. But here's the difference, and this is what gets me thinking, because in my job, you know, if somebody stole one of our trucks, if somebody broke into one of our vehicles, somebody did it, and we're going to catch them, and I was great at that. I can't just write things off and say, well, okay, it happened, I don't know who did it. I have to have an answer. And this subject, I can't get to an answer. It's so frustrating. But so when you compare the abductions, the descriptions were kind of small craft, somebody in a uniform. Actually, the first time they saw female officers based on their shape, and people taking you, they were seeing soil samples, animal samples, coaxing you in, grabbing you by the arm. It was real, right? That was, and it's been described as a new species that came to this planet. They had 6 weeks to get in and get out and get their samples. That is exactly what took place. Now you compare that to what has happened the last, let's say, 20 years, 10 years of the gray, like the one I have by my table, who comes out of the corner of your bedroom at night, you know, freezes you, takes you into some sort of altered state. That is not an ambassador or scientist from space. I am convinced that that is not the ET. Maybe there are ETs on some planet that look like grays with big heads and big eyes. Okay, maybe because they do copy and mimic and trick you. I'm telling you that type of abduction, in my opinion, falls under these malevolent interdimensional entities. I am 100% convinced of that. And when you look at that change, maybe it was around 1990 when the exorcisms went from 6 to 1,300. Something changed. Okay, here's the house I grew up in. That's the one with the ghost hanging from the tree. It must have been a Halloween picture. But that's my little house on Long Island. I lived there for 8 years. Nothing happened, zero. No paranormal activity. I got married at 21, bought a house at 22, right on the dock, on the bay there, the Great South Bay. Lived there another 9 years. That's my house where you see those 2 cars. It's actually cool to go look at your houses. They're all on those websites now. Nothing happened. High school, college, married, kids, career, nothing happened, which is why this is confusing. 1988, I'm working in Europe, 3 months with UPS. They want me to stay, move to Madrid 2 years, London 4 years. My wife won't go. Actually led to my divorce. It was part of the problem. So I turned it down. I spent Thanksgiving in Germany. Now you know why she was mad at me, the start of it. And so I got done. I was supposed to fly back December 22nd. I tried to change my flight to December 21st. It was like $600. I didn't change it. It was too expensive. I get on the plane. Everybody's buzzing about the flight that blew up over Lockerbie, Scotland. I was trying to change my flight to Pan Am 103. Okay? I don't know if this has anything to do with anything. I don't know if, you know, it's kind of like Final Destination. They're stalking me. But it stopped. It started before that as a kid. It didn't start with this. So what UPS does as a punishment, they actually flew to London to talk to me, like the second in charge. I told the guy, I got 2 kids. You know, they're like 3 and 5, and my son just got type 1 diabetes. She don't want to go. I'm not getting divorced in Madrid. I'm not going. So they punished me. They sent me to Oklahoma City. It was a great place to live. I was around the corner from a golf course. I bought a brand new brick house. I made it, you know, like Al Pacino. I was a success. You know, I made it. I was 29 years old or whatever it was then, early 30s, 32 years old. They sent me to Oklahoma. My wife hated it there. That's okay. But what happens, and I think it was 1990, not the first year, the second year. I only lived there 2 years. There's some sort of poltergeist in this house. One night, I'm going to bed at a first floor master bedroom. In the hallway, again, I hear the voice. These are the only times I ever heard a voice. It's a male, sounded Native American chant. Ha ha! It made, I'm looking, what the heck was that, right? Then my wife and I are watching America's Funniest Videos. It's 8 o'clock, the kids are in bed, they're 3 and 5, and all of a sudden, 3 footsteps right above us. And I said, okay. 3 louder footsteps above us. And I looked at my wife and I said, are the kids up? We keep watching TV. The next 3 footsteps were so loud. 3 footsteps, 3 times. Again, what I read is very typical, right? I jump up, I run upstairs, kids are in bed, sheets to their neck. I check the closets, under their bed, toy boxes, nothing. I don't know what did that. That was the start, okay, of a different level. Wife is upset, so I get the company to move us to New Jersey, close to Long Island, where her family is. This house, again, beautiful 5-bedroom house, built-in pool. It's great. Loved it in northern New Jersey, Roxbury, New Jersey. Everything goes bad. The first week we move in, or as soon as we get everything situated, I invite my parents over. I'm staying in there with my father, and this isn't the first time it happened. We're in the den's door to the garage. You can hear the moving boxes sliding around the garage floor. A very distinctive sound of heavy boxes on cement sliding around. My father says to me, John, what is that? I said, Dad, I don't know. The boxes slide around the floor by themselves, you know? And then it starts. And my daughter told me this just recently. She says, Dad, in the spare bedroom, I would hear a rocking chair and a baby crying. Another one of those markers that show up. Shadows moving by themselves on the ceiling. My sister and her family saw it first. I saw it maybe a few months later. I'm now divorced. My girlfriend moves in. The shadow just moves across the ceiling. Like, how is that possible? There's one night light and nothing making a shadow. One night I wake up, there's this kid standing at the footboard. He's about the same age as my son at that time, maybe around 10. Blonde hair, bowl haircut, plaid shirt, overalls. I knew it wasn't my son, but it was. I said, Nolan, get in. He lays down next to me. I put my arm around him. I wake up in the morning. I said, Caroline, where are the kids? She goes, they didn't sleep over last night. I was awake, and that was real. And I was saying, is this from Oklahoma? Is this that kid? Looked like a kid that died during the homestead, you know? A family that may have died. My son later, just recently, you know, I'd ask my son, I mean, Nolan, come on, you're like 23 years old and you sleep with a night light on. What's the deal? And he just recently told me, Dad, there were things that happened in that Jersey house after you moved out. He said, I would lay down at night and a voice behind the headboard would say, I'm going to get you. He said one day he was brushing his teeth, the cat was on the counter, like a Bigfoot. He said it was about 5 feet tall. It was covered in hair, like Cousin It. He said it walked across the hallway. The cat turned, he turned. My son was a better athlete than me. He jumped over the rail, landed in the living room, and ran out of the house. They just told me that stuff recently. My daughter, after we sold the house, she said, Dad, we pulled up with her friends in the car, and she goes, every light's on the house. We pull up. She's telling the friends about the house. Boom, every light in the house went out, only house on the block that every single light went out on. I'm telling you, that was the creepiest house you ever wanted. It was a dark. When I actually got the house back after the divorce, I would not sleep in the master bedroom upstairs. I converted the first floor office to my bedroom. I was not sleeping up there alone. But still, it's not registering with me, you know, what's going on, et cetera, because it happens, then it doesn't happen. And I'm more preoccupied at this point of holding on to my career and trying to figure out, why am I getting divorced? I didn't really do anything, I really didn't. When we went to Oklahoma, my wife's personality did a 180. And I would joke and say to people, I don't know who I'm living with. This is not my wife. You read stuff, that's what happens. These things change one of you, and they really want to destroy a family. So, 1996, that's why I got into this whole field. I wanted to write a book, a novel. That's what I wrote, 12/21/2012. It was a novel. I started my research. That's how I got involved in UFOs. Something strange happens along the way. I joined MUFON in 1998. I go to my first MUFON symposium in Northern Virginia, D.C. I'm at the symposium. I'm single now. This woman comes in, beautiful blonde. So, of course, I made my way over to her at lunch. About 11 o'clock, she showed up. I can see her, right? We have lunch together. We're talking. And I'm looking at this woman. She is the palest pale, gray, almost whitish gray, bloodshot eyes. There was something very different about her. Now, we go back to the symposium. She showed up, she paid. She showed up at 11. She never went back. So I guess I scared her away. I don't know. I don't think so. She never showed up for the 3-day symposium other than an hour before lunch. I had lunch with her, okay? This is important later. So I'm saying to myself, is this a hybrid? You know, because you want to pick out a hybrid, you know. Is this a hybrid? Comes to the UFO conference? Well, I get home. It's July 4th. I didn't stay in D.C. for the fireworks. I get home. The night I got home from the symposium, it starts. 4 straight nights of the most, whatever this malevolent entity was in my bedroom. I was having lucid dreams. I had my second out-of-body experience exactly 30 years after the first one, 1969, 1999. I can see the peak of my house, my Grand Cherokee in the driveway. I'm seeing these hybrid kids. I've always, since I got divorced, I like Dobermans. I have Dobermans. I've had 5 now. My Doberman is floating in the air with its legs sticking out. There is a kid about the same age as my son, again, 12 years old at this point, poking him in the ribs. And I can remember it. Stop poking my dog. I kept yelling at the kid. Poking the dog. Now, here's the weird thing. What I wrote down, I documented this after it happened. What I remembered was a kid that looked like he had bared hair plugs, big eyes, Popeye forearms with the bones sticking out the end. This was a creepy looking kid. And so in my mind, I'm thinking hybrid, alien abduction, out-of-body experience. Years later, when I decide really to write the book, and I'm thinking about it all and I'm writing, my memory remembers a rat boy with a very tightly pulled skin face and kind of that rat boy mouth and stuff. I had completely forgot about this other kid until I pulled my notes out because I wanted to get some of the information and the exact date that it happened, and there's my description of the other kid. Maybe I saw 2, maybe it's a screen memory. I don't know what that was, but it happened after my first UFO conference. I had been going to Comic-Cons, horror cons, nothing ever happened. All right? I'm not scaring you. We want you back next year for our 10th anniversary. We're going to have a good lineup. We're actually reducing the price because we want everybody to attend. But it happened. Where's the relationship now? Is this an alien abduction? Is this more of a malevolent entity, which is what I believe it is? So that goes on for 4 days. Oh, I'm waking up. There's that hairy creature my son saw standing next to me in my mind as a lucid dream. I wake up swinging my fist at the air. I remember hitting the headboard. I almost broke my wrist. It goes on for 4 nights. I can't sleep. This is the infestation, the wearing you down. And then after 4 days, it stops. So again, you're busy working. It happened. Nothing had happened for years. What did I just do? So you let it go. So this is my current house. When I moved into this house, actually this slide should be before the other one. I moved in 1997. The day I moved in, there was a tapping sound in the hallway. I'd hear it that whole summer. It would be just a tap like that all night in the wall. I'd go out, I'd tap the wall, it would stop. I'd go to bed, it would start again. All right, that's my current house. Okay, half of all the things that ever happened at Thanksgiving. And the reason, and my son pointed this out, because he actually is, he's a lot smarter than me. He said, we're together for Thanksgiving. The divorce agreement was, she got him for Christmas, I got him for Thanksgiving with the football games, etc. And half of all of the weird stuff that happened was at Thanksgiving when I was with my 2 kids. 2004, the kids are over. I got a new girlfriend. She moves in with me. It's Thanksgiving, great day. We go to bed. At midnight, You know, I closed the bedroom door. The kids were in their bedrooms. At midnight, I hear somebody walking in the hallway. Okay. So I get up. She goes to work. She uses actually the guest bathroom because she had so much stuff. I kept the master bathroom for myself. I get up. She goes to work. I look on the mirror. There's 2 arm and hand prints on the glass mirror. That's a picture of it. 6 fingers like this. What you saw really was the bone on the forearm without the meat. There's 2 like that with 6 fingers. She comes home. She dusts it with her makeup. So we got a better picture. We take the picture. I measure it. I'm 6 feet tall. It's 3 inches longer at the elbow. That means it's 7 feet tall. And this is significant, right? That would be about the right measurement. 3 inches, a foot, and it would be 12 inches longer. So then I said to my son, what were you doing outside our bedroom at midnight? He looks at me and says, Dad, I heard you in the hallway outside my bedroom. There was something in the hallway. That thing made this. Okay, 2007, my father passes away. Nothing negative about this, but again, it's this thing that happens to people, the paranormal thing. I'm laying in bed. I'm exhausted at this point. I'm laying there, my hands crossed across my stomach. I see a flash of light. I only saw it in my left eye. I did not see it in my right eye. It was a black as black hole with the most brilliant electricity pouring out of it. I couldn't find a picture. It was like a black tunnel, like you're standing over a fountain, and the most beautiful colored electricity just pouring out of it. I saw it for a split second, only in my left eye, right? I'm laying in bed. Something puts its hand on me, and all the hairs on my forearm move. I am convinced that was my father getting the last chance to say goodbye to his family before he moved on. I'm convinced that's what it was. Nothing negative about that, but again, paranormal. That's supernatural because it was positive. The other stuff is preternatural. I just want to mention 2 movies kind of crossed the line. It's amazing how in this field, if you mix the alien demonic, it turns people off. Aliens have to be from space. There are space brothers. They're here to clean up the environment and cure diseases. I got news for you. They're not. Some might be, but the bulk aren't, okay? So the 2 good movies, if you remember, Fourth Kind, it had that demonic tone to it, and Dark Skies. Great movies. One of the few that mixed the alien abduction and the demonic possession. Okay. 2009, this is September. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I look, my bed sits where I can see down the hallway. I wake up, there's a guy standing there. He's taller than the door frame, which is 6'8", so I'd say he's 7 feet tall. He's standing there, and this is not really the picture. He's thin like this with that tiny waist. The arms would be about a foot longer. He's standing, long skinny arms and legs, but he's got a square head. So I'm thinking helmet, alien, again, it's maybe the abduction thing. He's standing there. And the attic light is on. I have a finished attic, it's a gym. The door's open. The attic light's on, so I see him silhouetted there. I'm awake, I'm rubbing my eyes. I crawl to the foot of the bed, and I'm looking, so now it's 20 seconds. He's still there, he ain't going away. I'm saying to myself, I got somebody in the house, and it ain't human. I'm saying, okay, John, step over the footboard and charge it, right? As soon as I think that, in my head, it says, that would be unsafe. You want to step off the side of the bed and put the light on, which is what I did, and of course it's gone. I am convinced that this thing in 2009 was the thing in 2004 that put the handprints on the glass because it would have been the right size. That is the only physical thing I ever really saw, and the kid, that I could say was not a lucid dream or an altered state. That was there in my house. 2010. So my kids didn't live with me in Pittsburgh. They stayed with their mother in northern New Jersey. But every other weekend I saw my kids. I drove 610 miles every other weekend for about 7 or 8 years until they went to college because I was not going to be separated from my kids. My kids are over. I'm on the board of juvenile diabetes in Pittsburgh. We have the big gala. We get home. It's about midnight. Everybody goes to bed. At about 4 in the morning, The door bursts open. My daughter runs in and says, Dad, 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 you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe me. She was upset. I said, well, tell me what happened. She goes, I went downstairs to get a bottle of water. And you didn't have any, so I went to the basement refrigerator. She says, Dad, I'm standing there, and there's something standing behind me. She described my lucid dream from when I was 12 years old, 14 years old. It's standing there, it's breathing on her. She says, it feels so malevolent. She goes upstairs, lays down. She no sooner lays down, a shadow person laid on top of her and pressed completely into her body. She said it was the most painful thing she ever experienced. It pulls out. She sits up and says, what was that? She lays back down, happens again, okay? Now what she sees is these shadow people circling on the ceiling. She sees a shadow man standing in the doorway, and she says, Dad, in my head, I can hear like 40 people like I'm in a crowded room. The thing standing in the doorway said, and she didn't make this up, it said, when you're done with her, I want to try out the other two, meaning my son and his fiancée in the other room. That is wording that she would not have made up. Whitley Strieber couldn't have made that wording up. This was real and it happened. So whatever these things are, they enter you, that maybe that's how they feel alive. I even said to her, you know, Vanessa, we live next to a cemetery. Maybe it's a ghost. It's the one moment they could feel alive when we're sleeping, let's say. She was awake this whole time. This was not, what's it called, hypnagogia, where you're coming out of sleep and something happens. She was awake the whole time. We go and tell my son and his fiancée. I'm looking at the fiancée. She's starting to sway, getting clammy, pale. She goes, I don't feel good. My son and her packed the bags and left for Virginia at about 4 in the morning after this happened. And it's significant because I think it's why my daughter doesn't sleep in my house anymore, and I'll get to that. Thanksgiving again, 2013, right? My son's over with his fiancée. I have a home theater. I love movies, right? Projector, 9-foot screen comes down, stadium seating. I put the Cowboy game on. I'm talking to my son and his fiancée. He says, what's that? We look up, the light, very powerful light from the projector. You see this thing snake across the ceiling. It was about 3 feet long, just like that. It had enough mass that you could see it go across the light. And I said, that's one of these spirits, a minion, whatever's in your house that spies on you and reports back up the chain of command to the demonic ones, that was in the house. And that was, and here's something important too. You read a book, in my book is the guy's name. They did a project, they weighed people when they passed away, and humans lost 21 grams. They weighed animals, dogs, horses, etc. There was no loss. That is the soul. That it weighs 21 grams. I think there's a movie like that too, right? That's the difference between us and animals. We're level 10, they're level 11. We have the soul which lodges in our brain. That's the software. And I think this guy proved it when he weighed people when they passed away in the hospital. Okay. At the same time, you know, I publish, I'm actually feeling kind of guilty about publishing Apophis and an alternative history of mankind. You know, because they're that ancient alien, no God, we were upgraded, genetically engineered. Right now I feel like blasphemy. You know, it didn't talk about the good guys, you know. Also, I'm starting to read books. Keel, Hynek, Vallée. UFOs are not from space. It's something interdimensional that we're dealing with. And in my mind, you know, this is now 2 years ago, I'm saying, you know, this interdimensional thing makes more sense than nuts and bolts, the way this whole thing lays out, right? So, I decide to research the gray alien abduction, okay? That's what I told you, Fred Saluga got my brain going. Alien abduction doesn't add up, okay? So, that is now 2014. Now it begins. So if you think that was bad, let me tell you about the last 2 years. And I'm 59 years old, and I sleep with a nightlight on now, just like my son, okay? It's June 6th of 14, the date I got divorced, all right? I kind of wish it was June 6th of 96, so it would be 666. That's how, but it was 6/6/14, 20 years later. Something shows up in my house, totally different than at any other time, okay? I go upstairs, and what I do, usually at dusk, I open up that attic door. It has skylights, cool air comes in. You know, if it's under 70 degrees, I do that. I go upstairs. I'm in the hallway where the tapping sound has been off and on for 17 years, and I smell. I said, what is that? Now I got a 108-pound Doberman who's bit me 3 times. I almost took this finger off last week. He's with me. I said, did you do your business here? Then I realized this is not feces. This is rotting. This smells like a dead animal is what I'm smelling. And it's from the bathroom and in that hallway spot. I walk into the other bedrooms. There's 4 upstairs. I don't smell anything. It's condensed right there. I put the fan on, I close the door, I go downstairs, I'm watching the baseball game, I buy the MLB package, I'm watching it, my dog comes over, he lays across my legs, watching the game. The wall, there's the loudest bang you ever want to hear. I hit pretty hard. I can't hit the wall loud enough to make this noise, right? Boom! The dog and I turn, the picture on the wall flips up, there's 2 Indian headdresses, I'll show it to you, the feathers blow to the side. The dog saw it. So this is not telepathic, this happened. Just like with my son, the cat and him turned. Well, the dog and I, we turned. Game's over, I go upstairs, the smell's still there. 3 hours the fan's on, the smell is still there. I said, forget about it. I turn the fan off, I go to bed, I put the Weather Channel on. The dog has his own little bed thing at the foot of the bed where I see his head. All of a sudden he gets out of his little chair. He trots down the hallway to the attic. He looks up the stairs and goes ballistic. Now, let me tell you something. There's the Doberman who barks at people walking down the street. There's the Doberman bark of the UPS guy that comes to the door. That was, whatever it was, he was going to tear it apart. He went wild. He saw something at the top of the stairs. And I say, thank God for dogs. This dog has helped me a number of times to protect me. I go down the hallway, nothing there. I search the upstairs. I again lay down. The news is on. The dog's on his footbed thing. In my bathroom. It's like a supersonic boom. Boom! The dog in my head. We look. You know, and I know a little bit at this point, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to be scared. Because they feed on it. I've watched movies. They feed on your fear. I roll over, I go to bed, okay? The next morning, I start thinking about it, and birds start flying into my window. For 22 months, these red cardinals are flying into my window. I got witnesses. People come over and say, John, what is that? They're flying into my window. They fly into my window at night, and you hear them singing. Birds don't sing at night. They don't fly at night unless you rattle the tree and they get startled. This starts June 7th. Birds flying into my window. I get a concern now. I start reading books. I go to the Majesty store, the Christian store. I start buying books. Now the reading starts 2 years ago. A couple of months later, I meet this woman on a dating site, and you know, this is how I lose half my dates, more than that. I start telling her about this stuff. Big mistake. Big mistake. You know, I said to Polites last night, where are the UFO groupies? How come I don't meet them? But I meet this woman, and I start telling her, and she goes, I'm coming over tomorrow. I got my own holy water. I know the prayers. This has happened to me in college. This woman comes over, goes room to room, holy water, St. Michael prayer, blesses it, puts the cross. I'm telling you, the house felt totally different after this woman did that. We never dated. It's weird. I would have married this woman. It's like everybody's got their type. She was a year older than me, a dancer. She was a 10.5. I would have married this one. And we got along. We're friends now, and we talk and everything, but it just, that part, she never wanted. She showed up on a dating site but didn't want to date. I don't really get it. You know, that's your guardian angel sending you somebody, giving you hints, is what it is. She came to protect me. It's October, I think now, of 14. My dog, again, I see him get up. He goes out into the hallway. He darts down the stairs to the front door and goes ballistic, okay? I have spotlights. They don't come on. I walk downstairs. I go to the front door. I'm thinking something's there, but the light should have came on. the loudest boom you ever want to hear. I jumped back. It was like a sonic boom, and I had also put the St. Michael blessed ornaments in the four corners of the house outside. I did everything I could in reading. The next morning, my neighbor emails me. He says, "John, did you hear that noise last night at 10:33 p.m.?" She said, "I thought a deer ran full speed into our garage door or a transformer exploded." They heard it, okay? The dog heard it. Some things are telepathic, some things are physical. So that's June the 14th. That starts my search and my journey to figure out what the heck is going on with alien abductions, demonic stuff, my paranormal stuff. I got a bunch of my MUFON investigators that do ghost hunting. I contact John Weaver, the Seaches. They say, "You got a demon. If you can smell it, that's not a ghost, that's not a poltergeist, you got a demon, you got trouble." Okay? So now I start doing everything I could do. This is the wall, the Indian picture that flipped up, the two Indian headdresses. You can see that's the stuff that blew to the side. So I'm saying to myself, does this have to do with living in Oklahoma? The kid dressed in the overalls, the house I lived in. I didn't do anything to Native Americans, you know. I like Indians, to be honest with you. Since Kevin Costner had that movie, we got a different view of Dancing with Wolves, right? And that room is full of Indian animal stuff. It's kind of like a tribute. Every room in my house is themed. Egyptian, Japanese, Indian, sports, medieval weapons, you know. Every room is themed. The basement is all sci-fi, horror, movies, models, stuff like that. So I'm saying, I don't know. Is this a Native American thing? Because nothing had happened until I was living in Oklahoma. Nothing serious. Okay. Now we get to Thanksgiving of 2015. My daughter's married, living in Wilmington, North Carolina. A few months earlier in July, out of the blue, my son, who said, "I hate Pittsburgh. It's dirty, it's ugly, it rains," he says, "I'm moving to Pittsburgh, Dad," with his wife. I said, "Great." I gave him a down payment. He bought a house 10 miles from me. Again, your guardian angel interceding to help you, because I basically lived there by myself. You would think all of the people from work, all of the groups I belong to, you know, other than a handful of MUFON people, I don't really have any friends. I hate to say that, I really don't. So it was great having my son and his wife come there. So it's Thanksgiving of 2015. Again, it's Thanksgiving. Monday of Thanksgiving week. And as far as I knew, my daughter was flying in for 5 nights. I assumed 2 nights with me, 3 nights with her brother in the new house. His wife is her best friend from college when she went to Rutgers over here. Monday night, I go upstairs. My daughter's bedroom's wide open. That's never happened. I close the door. Tuesday night, I go upstairs. My daughter's bedroom door is wide open. That never happens, or it happened the night before. I close the door. The doors don't open by themselves. You turn the handle. And I don't have, like Mr. Ed is a dog that turns the handle. That door opened. I'm on the phone with I didn't see it open, but it was opened. I'm on the phone with my daughter. She goes, "Dad, I got to tell you something. I'm staying at Nolan's house for 5 nights. I'm not sleeping with you, at your house." I said, "What?" I said, "You're coming up for 5 nights and you're not staying in my house at all?" You know. She goes, "No, we're staying with," again, the guardian angel helping her because she got attacked in that bedroom in 2010. And the message was, because these things can't wait, they were opening the door, the invitation, they're waiting for my daughter. And they know exactly everything you know. That day that I found out she wasn't coming, which is probably now Wednesday morning, it turned on me. You know, they were waiting for her. I'm convinced of that. Now, Wednesday, I go upstairs. Well, now the tapping, it's not only the tapping in the walls, there's movement in the ceiling, there's pinging. I know when they arrive, there's pinging sounds in the room. And it's like, boom, 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 boom. It can't be, you know? And then the noises, banging, you'll hear boom. In the morning, when the sun comes up, I said, "What am I dealing with, Dracula?" The sun comes up in the attic at the far end of the house. You hear a sonic boom upstairs, like it has to get out before the sun rises, you know? I'm telling you, this is creepy. This proceeds now. My son does Thanksgiving, my daughter leaves, but it's with me now. I'm going to bed at night, a couple of nights in a row. I walk into the bedroom, something sticks me in my thigh. I actually jump. It's like, what the heck is that? It's like a sewing needle just poked you in the thigh. Now it progressed from infestation to oppression. This is weeks now. You're into maybe 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. 2 nights I lay down, The first night I lay down, it pokes me in my forehead. Hurt. Next night, and again, you're hearing the noises. I'm probably getting 4 hours sleep a night, waking up every hour, like in 1999 when this thing was in my bedroom. Can't sleep. That's the infestation. That's the oppression. We get to a little bit before Christmas. I lay down, and it starts. Well, first there's the poke in the head, and again, it was like taking your nail and just driving it into my forehead. I actually got out of bed to look in the mirror. I said, it's got to be a spider bite or something. There's nothing there. It hurt. I lay down. I hear a sliding sound in the ceiling. The banging sounds loud. And a creak in the corner of the ceiling that you wouldn't believe. I did what the woman told me to do. She gave me like a write-up. She printed stuff out. I sat up in bed and I said, Jesus Christ commands you to leave this house. Go back to where you came from. I am covered in the blood of Jesus Christ. You do not belong here. You were never invited here. Leave. It stops. Okay? I lay down. Of course, I can't sleep at this point. Maybe 20 minutes later, I open my eyes. The room is completely black, right? There was moonlight coming in. I hadn't done the nightlight thing yet, right? I look around. I actually sat up and I looked and I said, wow. I said, I like sleeping in the dark. My daughter used to say to me, Dad, how do you sleep in that house next to a cemetery in pitch blackness? I said, I love sleeping in the dark. I don't want a light on, right? It all starts again. Now the banging is so loud, the creaking in the corners, like you crushed a soda can, like I thought the whole corner of the room collapsed. And I knew I was in trouble. I was shrouded in a black veil. I sat up, I said the exact same things, and I added to it, if you disobey Jesus Christ, you will go to the lake of fire now instead of at the end of days. And believe me, I can get mean. I was the head of security. My nicknames in New York was the Terminator, and in Jersey was the Hammer. You know, I said it like, and I really want these things to show themselves. You know, if a gargoyle or vamp, I'm going to hit this thing so hard. But I said that, when I added it, it stopped. It wasn't gone, because after that, the next days, all of that, you hear the pinging, a bang, you hear the rustling upstairs. So it kind of, it lessened. Also, when this was going on, like my daughter, I saw 3 black shadows circling the ceiling fan in reverse order. So I think it's about 2 days later, I go downstairs. I always let my dog out through the basement. I'm about 2 feet from the sliding glass door. Something puts its hand on my head like that. I felt large fingers, 3 of them, but they were spongy, like they didn't fully materialize. I jumped. I looked up and said, you can't do that, because this is physical, right? Then I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it all day. I said, John, there was nothing negative about that. That is the way that you would put your hand on your son's head. That is the way you pet your dog. I believe it was a blessing. I did the right thing. At that moment, I turned to God, which I hadn't done probably my entire life, okay? And I think it was a blessing. If I lost my grace because of a divorce, and I really never stepped into church, never said prayers, whatever it might be, I think I got it back that day. Because I really feel like I'm a different person at this point. But the thing you've got to remember or think about is, I view this entire UFO thing in a different light now, with a different set of eyes. I'm looking at older cases and different things for markers of the demonic, and I found them too. So, okay, we're good on time. At January, you know, my dog is suffering with the worst Lyme disease you ever want to see. I almost put him down. I never see a dog in so much pain, right? You know, he got the medication, so he's better. I'm standing in the hallway. I just got news. My mother has renal failure. My brother has a huge cancerous tumor in his throat, thyroid, and you know, it was time to bring the dog to the vet to be checked for Lyme's disease. I'm standing there, and you know, at this moment, I probably am. You know, well, I believed a few days before that I was standing in the presence of angels and demons. I believe that 100%. Couldn't see them. I saw what they could do. Oh, the other thing with the black veil, I didn't tell you. When I said that to leave, For about 2 seconds, I saw the black veil lift. It's unbelievable. The light from the windows came in from the moonlight, and for about 2 seconds, I saw this veil of blackness go up. So I'm standing in the hallway. I said, Jesus, help my dog. My dog protected me. Help the dog. And I said, help my mother. My brother, he threw all her clothes away in Florida and said, John, she's dying. We're going to go to the funeral in Long Island. And then my brother got the news, and I said, help my mother, help my brother, right? Next couple of days, I take the dog to the vet. They do a Lyme disease test. 0. His test a few months earlier was 35, okay? You got to get under 30. 0. And the vet says, it's got to be in his body somewhere. You can't get 0. I get a call from my sister. Mom has a kidney infection. She's fine. She don't have kidney failure. And my brother has his thyroid out, and he says to me, John, it's been 2 weeks. I don't need medication. He eventually went on it, but he says, I don't have a thyroid, and I feel fine. All my numbers are okay. I'm telling you, I saw a miracle, and I was standing in the presence of angels and demons. I didn't ask for the lottery numbers, but I believe that 100%. So my viewpoint from this point on, from the rest of my life, is going to be, how do these things relate to your soul and to Jesus, or whoever it is, the good guy you believe in? Because I believe that 100%. That dog now is 108 pounds and vicious. I'm telling you, he bit me last week. I thought I lost my pinky. Here's something else happens in March. And I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. I love these movies, and this is a problem. I love this stuff, right? The Damien TV series comes on. It's, The Omen, Damien. First episode, March 7th, right? I said, I'm going to watch it in bed. It's on at 10. I lay down in bed. 15 minutes into it, he's the Antichrist, basically, this kid. The walls start drumming, like 2. I turned the TV off, it stopped. I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. This is even better. I fly, I fly down to visit my daughter. I go to Myrtle Beach. While I'm there, again, I get my epiphany. Write a book on this stuff. This is incredible. People need to know. This is real, and there's a relationship here between abductions and demonology. I fly back April 20th. I have 12 pages of written notes for my book because I didn't bring my laptop. I sit down at my desk. I start typing my book called The Ufologist, The Haunting of John Ventry. I look up, and 130 feet of my backyard's on fire, okay? And it looked like a straight line on the opposite side of my fence. I counted the poles. It was about 130 feet to the gate. It's on fire. The trees are... I said, it's like, what? I sit down, 3 seconds later, I look up, and 130 feet of my yard's on fire. I look out the window, I see 3 guys in the cemetery next door. I call the police, I said, there's 3 kids there. They had to take lighter fluid, go along my fence line, and light the leaves up. They go, nope, they called it in before you. I said, okay. They come, they put it out. About an hour later, I had my headstone, I bought it. I wanted to do this myself, not have my kids do it, and I'm perfectly healthy, believe me. And I bought this headstone. It's 5'11". It's in the shape of the Holy Bible. It actually has the bookmarks on it. It looks like a book. There's religious stuff on it. There's you see that the coolest picture of the angel descending, Michael with the sword, and he's surrounded by demons. It's the coolest picture. So I do my headstone, right? Now think about this. The moment they installed the headstone, the moment I sat down to write my book to out this, because I believe it to be real, my yard bursts on fire, all at the same time, and that bird, those family of birds that were flying into my window from June of 14 to April of 16 stopped. I told my priest, and he goes, John, that is not coincidence. It's not coincidence. The noise is still there. The priest comes, but these are now ghosts or poltergeist noises, not demonic. Priest comes, blesses the house in June of 23rd. July, again, now it's July. I go upstairs. There's a column of gas, like propane, in that same spot in the hallway, two nights in a row. I call the Johnson's heating. They come, they check the whole house. There's nothing. There's nothing. One night, and there were weird sounds that are coming from my refrigerator right now. Bangs, really strange. A couple of days, My dog is with me. I can hear him go across the tile floor. He's heavy, he's got nails. I can't clip him, he'll bite me. So I'm with the dog. He even goes and looks. You hear the noise of something walking across the kitchen floor. One night, I'm laying in bed recently, and I get kind of annoyed. I say my prayers. I said, God, give me the sword of Michael. I will slay these things myself. The minute I said that, right above me on the ceiling, boom, boom, like knock, knock, and I'm not asking who's there. I refuse to communicate with it. I know it's still there. Now, quickly, and this is another presentation for next year. I'm going to tell you this stuff quickly because we're almost at noon. Think about this. The first gray alien ever sketched was in 1918 by occult devil worshiper Aleister Crowley. The first time, and that's what he sketched. Don't have the big eyes, but the first gray was demonic. I go to Scotland, and this was great. I found some of the stuff I needed to finish my book. I went to Scotland in June, met with the Scottish Paranormal Society. He tells me in 1993 to 98, it was a 5-year study to contact the afterlife, mediums, psychiatrists, psychologists, etc. What they contact is something that says that it will communicate and appear if there's no lights on. And what shows up is a gray. You can look it up. What is the relationship with the grays and the demons? All right? This is just some stuff from Genesis about the Nephilim, etc. I come up with a new ancient alien theory. It's in my book, okay? I also find out 2 things when I'm there, and I don't know if it's on the next slide. In Rosslyn Chapel, there's something called the Devil's Chord. Music that plays, opens a portal, heavy music. The church, the Catholic Church, removed a couple of the tiles so you can't play the full ensemble. And what the guy's telling me about is resonance, frequency, tone. When you cast a spell, it has to be done a certain way. Well, it works that way also. King Solomon was given the spell to build King Solomon's temple. You can look it up. Look up the word goetia, a Latin word. That's how he built King Solomon's temple. I'll go into this next year. I believe that's how all these ancient sites were built. Kirk and the Enterprise will not come here and quarry stone and move it. I'm telling you, they would have technology. And I don't believe those ancient sites were built by ancient aliens. I believe they're here. They've come as explorers, taken samples. They've been seen, rock cavings, petroglyphs, paintings. I believe in that. But they didn't build those sites, okay? I'll get into this deeply next year. My fear is these malevolent entities, they're the grays, and something changed in 1973. I read Joe Jordan's book, MUFON State Director who moved to South Korea. He's the MUFON Country Director in South Korea. They have identified 400 abduction cases where the person got frightened, called upon Jesus, and the gray alien abduction stopped. Why does extraterrestrials back away from the name of Jesus Christ? And he found it in other cultures under other names of whoever it is you believe in. There's something wrong with the alien abduction of this type. Maybe it's not all of them, but it's this type. You can read his book. I read it. He was at the MUFON Symposium, and we had this conversation. I believe I've discovered the string theory now to explain a lot of this. It's in my book. I believe most of this is interdimensional. I think your defense is to believe in whoever the good guy is that you believe in, if it's the interdimensional malevolent entity. There's different quotes here, about different things that are going to happen, how we're going to be tricked, which is in the Bible. Many authors have written this. I have found John Keel, I've read 3 or 4 of his books, is the closest to what I believe right now. These are ultra-terrestrials, interdimensional, always been here on this planet, and they're malevolent. So, you want disclosure. I got a voicemail this morning from a guy in West Virginia, Linda Moulton Howe last night, talking about in January UFO disclosures coming, okay? I fear UFO disclosure, because if these things are not from space, and maybe the space ones are coming forward, if this is that apostasy, that pulling away from religion, it will come through UFO disclosure. I believe that. And I don't think what we're seeing here I don't think that these are space aliens. These are malevolent interdimensional entities. My kids say, Dad, why do you stay Catholic? Come on, it's like ritual. You sit, you stand, you sit, you stand, you kneel. I said, there's 3 reasons, okay? And watch the Exorcist movie that's on Friday, the TV series. There's 3 reasons. 1, it's an old faith that goes back to Jesus, and other Christian faiths do too. 2, they believe in exorcism. They support the Sacred Order of Exorcists. They did that in 2012. That increase in exorcism, they support that. And they support confession. What I've read in exorcism is they can see your unconfessed sins. But my kids, I'm glad they go to church, but you know, they play music, there's bands and big screens. I don't care. As long as they believe, that's fine with me. Okay? This is my last book. We really don't have time for questions. I'll talk to you out there. That's my presentation. I'm telling you, it's 1,000% true.